Are you ready to metal? Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we are back with another 10, we're going to call this one rock or metal songs that are about fantasy books. And this time we're doing the special viewer submission version of this list because, man, did you guys have a lot of suggestions. And I definitely had some people bring up some stuff that was on my list or I was going to get to later. But there were a lot of people who had a lot of very passionate suggestions. And so I thought, you know what, let's go ahead and do this video now. And we'll talk about these songs and give credit to the people who submitted them as well. Took a break from doing this as I was doing it every week for a few weeks with songs or bands, and then I did a Wheel of Time one. I don't know how many people are still interested as this ongoing, but despite the fact that these take a lot of time to make, they're fun for me and I enjoy them. So with no further ado, let's jump in and get started. So first up we have The Cold Sword by Eternal Champion. This is a heavy metal band from Texas, and it sounds like the Eternal Champion is based off of Michael Moorcock's work, and it sounds like the Eternal Champion shows up in a lot of his different books in kind of like a multiverse type of way. And so this includes lines such as, "The champion's fate to wake in worlds anew," and this was one, I did not know this band. They're pretty good, like old school heavy metal, and so that was a fun one. And this was submitted by Lucas, so thank you, Lucas, for submitting. Next up we have, that's right, Chibi Poe, Nightfall by Blind Guardian. So Blind Guardian has definitely gotten some mentions in other videos because they have a lot of specific fantasy book songs. Power metal band from Germany, and Chibi Poe is the one who submitted this one and was very disappointed that I had not mentioned this specific song, even though I had mentioned some other Blind Guardian songs, so we had to get it in. This is from the album Nightfall on Middle Earth, and is very, very Lord of the Rings. I believe specifically about the Silmarillion. Includes such lines as, "How long shall we mourn in the dark? The bliss and the beauty will not return," and some really solid stuff. So I know a lot of people know Blind Guardian. They have a lot of songs. I've mentioned them a few times. I was trying to keep the Lord of the Rings stuff to a little bit more of a minimum because there were so many Lord of the Rings songs, bands, etc. And so I'm like, I didn't want to do all Lord of the Rings, so I tried to really mix it up. There will be several more on here that have been mentioned, and there'll be a lot more in the future as well too. So there's definitely going to be more Lord of the Rings. And speaking of Lord of the Rings, we have our next song, "Ramble On" by Led Zeppelin. But got him at the evil one. And now, I'm pretty sure everybody knows who Led Zeppelin is. One of the great rock and roll bands we call classic rock typically today. And this song, while not like super Lord of the Ringsy, it's a little bit more random. It does specifically reference Gollum and the Evil One, and just has some of that stuff in there. And Zeppelin did reference Lord of the Rings here and there in their other music as well. I picked this one because it was just the first one that came to mind when Bookish Drummer suggested Led Zeppelin and talked about them with Lord of the Rings. And yeah, they've got some other options there too, but I decided to include this one for it. And yeah, I don't think I need to explain Zeppelin a whole lot. They're from the UK, which I also assume that most people are aware of as well, but there we are. All right, so next up, and this one was by far the one that was talked about the most, which was the band Anthrax, and specifically I went with the song "Among the Living." So Anthrax and/or this song was mentioned by Curly Howard, Eric Malone, and the Bookish Drummer. So a lot of mentions here. And they apparently have a lot of songs that are about Stephen King stuff. I am not a huge thrash fan, and so while I know some random Anthrax songs, I wasn't super familiar, and so didn't realize there was this one. This one is specifically about The Stand. And the lyrics in general, I feel it looks like they're pretty clear. It does specifically reference Captain Trips, which is the name of the virus, I guess, from The Stand. Not a King fan, so I don't know a lot about this firsthand. But yes, so they apparently have a good fair few, which led me down to a rabbit hole of finding even more bands that have songs about Stephen King stuff. So there's a lot of stuff in there, and The Stand isn't really fantasy, so I only included before I did do some Dark Tower songs, but it's close enough, and we're going to count it for this list for the viewer submission portion here. And then next up, we are back to Lord of the Rings with Rivendell by Rush. Light dances. So Rush, also, I feel like incredibly well known, and they are a mostly like prog rock band from Canada. They have a ton of really well known hits, and in their earlier stuff especially, they did a lot of very, very fantasy type stuff. Some of just kind of their own fantasy story, but then songs like Rivendell, which very specifically is about Lord of the Rings, of course, does have lines including "To where the misty mountains rise and friendly fires burn, a place you can escape the world." And in general, the lyrics of that song are just really nice and enjoyable to listen to. But it is interesting. The earlier stuff, I feel like, has a bit more of a folk feel. And so they did quite a lot before like their really big and well-known stuff later on. So definitely one to check out if you, especially, I figure most people know Rush, but if you're not a big Rush fan, you may not know like the older stuff, which I'm not super familiar with myself. But it's some good stuff for sure. And that was mentioned by Bald and Balding, which I think it was specifically Mike Molman from there who mentioned Rush and this song among some others as well. So credit there for that submission as well. And then I have to specifically note too he's going to show up on this list multiple times, but a ton on my overall list is Zan, who came out of the gate with just a huge amount, specifically a ton of Malazan-related stuff, as well as some other things, and so added a ton to the list, and I'll be mentioning him a few times, but our next song is Bridge Burners by Chain of Dogs. A very long, long time ago, we set a fire. So this is a thrash folk band, which is really odd and different and not something I'm familiar with. It really wasn't that from the Netherlands. And yeah, just kind of a really interesting style I would not have expected. And this band/song was brought up by both Swan Sean and Zan. So thank you both for the submission here. And this is, of course, about Malazan, and includes lines such as, "Buried deep when moon spawn failed, so many died, a darker end, but there is no pause for us, our loyalty's our doom." So very, very specifically and obvious there to be Malazan lyrics, and just like I said, a really interesting type of band. One I would not have fully expected to exist, so that was pretty cool to find out. And speaking of Bridge Burners, the next one is a song called The Bridge Burners by Between the Devil and the Deep. So this is a melodic hardcore band from Australia, and I'm crediting Zan for this, because he gave me a different name of the band, but I'm pretty sure this is it, because it's this right kind of music in the right area, and this is all I was finding for it. This was actually really solid, too. This is a band that I had not heard of, but I'm definitely going to check out some more of. This song, of course, also about Malazan, about the Bridge Burners, and includes lyrics such as, "There are jade comets in the sky, bathing us in green," references the crippled god, some other stuff there. So another, like I said, it's crazy. I did not know how many Malazan bands there were. I knew of a few, but then I found so many more with researching for these lists. So this was a pretty cool one. So thanks again, Zan, for the submission. Next up then, and we are breaking away from Malazan and back to Lord of the Rings, because I've had a few people mention that I needed to talk about summoning, the big one being Metal Music Discord commented on it, because summoning is, and even though I'm not like a black metal fan, I know summoning just because of Metal World. They are like the big, really well-known black metal band that's just all Tolkien all the time. Tons of Lord of the Rings stuff. And so there were a lot of songs I probably could have included, almost everything they've done. The one I picked, though, which I'm going to mispronounce, is Merdautas Vras. And I picked this song because it is actually written in the Black speech. So let's take a listen. So yeah, writing, having all your stuff be about Tolkien, okay, makes sense. Being a black metal band that's based on Tolkien, that's pretty normal as well. But literally writing a song in the Black speech of Mordor, that's just freaking cool. And I have to say, I don't mind some bits of this song. Not huge on black metal, but I'm going to have to try out a little bit more summoning, because it's actually not quite the same as some. So I'll need to listen to some more. Like I said, I just haven't listened to a ton of black metal because it's not really my thing. But this was just such a cool concept for a song. I had to definitely include that on here. Then next up we have To Take the Black by The Sword. So this is a heavy metal / like stoner rock, stoner metal type of band. That it's a real genre, look it up if you don't believe me. And they are from Texas. This was submitted by Chris Santel, if I'm pronouncing that right, sorry if I'm not. And it's already hard reading usernames, so trying to figure out sometimes. But this is about, of course, A Song of Ice and Fire, about the Night Watch in the guard there. And this includes such lines as, all brothers must swear the oath, forsaking all they've ever known. And was not bad. I do love me some old school heavy metal. This, I can definitely feel some of the stoner elements in here, but not super, super hard. So this was a pretty enjoyable one. The Sword is also a band that I've known about for a really long time. Haven't really listened to them a ton, but they are, I feel like, fairly well known in certain circles. So one I was aware of here. But I knew they did fantasy stuff, but I didn't know this specific one, and they've got some others too that are very specifically referencing fantasy books, which gets them an include on this list. And now the last one, which is my favorite on the list. I had never heard of this, and it's my favorite because I can't really believe that this is a thing. This was also submitted by Zan. Like I said, a lot of contributions from Zan on this video, and there'll be more in the future as well. But this is the song and the artist are The Fall of Ephrafa. So this is a crust punk band from the UK, which crust punk, not being the most well-known of genres, but is very, it's kind of like it's got really heavy elements of punk and hardcore. Hardcore usually has some punk elements too, but it's kind of a mix of that is how I'm going to describe it. But obviously you heard a little bit of it as well. And they have 3 albums all about Watership Down. I would not have expected that, and I love that that is a thing. And like I picked the song specifically, which has a refrain of "The Warren is empty," but includes the opening lines of the song are, "The Warren is empty tonight, blood spills on toiled ground, fur will hang in ragged clumps upon the hedgerows." And I'm just like, what is happening here? So I love that we live in a world where this is a thing. Like I said, 3 albums, all about Watership Down, and that is just not something I ever would have guessed. And I think it's hilarious. And it really wasn't bad either. So it's definitely another one that I'll have to try some more of it and take a listen. But it was a really, really fun one to discover. So that is our last one on this list. Like I said, thank you to everyone who made submissions. There are definitely some more things that are submitted that were already on my list and or that I just haven't gotten to quite yet. But I'll definitely probably, if I get a bunch more submissions, do more of this as well. So if you still have some suggestions you haven't commented on one of the previous videos, definitely let me know in the comments here. And hopefully you guys are still enjoying this, because I'm still really enjoying doing these videos, and my lists have only increased since starting, so have enough to do for a while. I might start spacing them out a little bit more, just so people don't get sick of it, but we'll see on that. But that is it for this one. So make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it and want to see more of this kind of thing. Check the link in the description, as always, for the Wizardly Enclave Discord if you want to chat books or music about books, or really anything at all. It's a lot of fun, and we'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.